If you remember from a while ago, I said I was going to be creating a little series of mine. Well, this will be the first video of that series. Welcome to Resetted Mind. And let's begin. That took like 20 minutes, 20 seconds. Anyway, I was excited. Not because the next day was coming soon, not because school was coming out fairly soon. None of that was important for me. I created a long list of things I wanted to be able to do in my next life. I was going to reset, and I was going to enjoy it. I smiled. I looked things up. I found out about Adobe Flash, or whatever it was, Adobe Animate. I believe that was what that was. But Adobe Animate and YouTube had been created before I would have been born. YouTube was in 2005, my birth year, while Adobe Animate was sometime in the 1990s. I believe it was 1996. I looked these things up so I could actually use them, as apparently Flip-A-Clip wouldn't be able to be used until 2017. This was a bit disappointing as it seemed fairly easy to use. Oh well, I shrugged it off. It was just something that I didn't have to learn then. I've been learning the other things fairly quickly. I figured out how to animate fairly easily on the Adobe Animate thing, and knew how to use those things. But one of the items on the list was me being able to understand YouTube and Adobe fairly quickly after being first born in my new life. There was a bunch of other things on the list as well, and I shoved it right to Rossetti. Rossetti was essentially this clear boy. They had a fairly white outline, and they appeared somewhat cartoonish, but they did exist in the real world, at least for me. No one else could see him. I'm ready, I said excitedly. You sure this is all you want? He said, looking at the list. Yes, I'm sure. Didn't you say yesterday about something about wings? I'm gonna do that on another reset, I said. Oh, okay then, he said. Just go to sleep tonight, and as soon as you wake up, you'll be a brand new babe. Right back to the first day of October in 2005. That, by the way, is my birthday. So if you guys want to do celebrations or something like that, 1st of October, literally the first few hours, and it'll be my next birthday, turning 15. Anyway, back to the story. Enough about me and my birthday. I went to sleep and then woke up. I was in my mother's hands, her arms. She was almost fast asleep. I looked around the room. It was a hospital's room. I was bored. So I went to sleep and didn't wake up till the next day. When it was the next day, I woke up quite hungry. So I began looking around, looking for a possible paper and pencil. I couldn't speak yet, due to the fact that I had no teeth at all. But I could walk around. I did have bones after all. And if I fell over, my skull was already fairly tough. Well, not really that tough or stiff, but rather moldable. It was very moldable. So if I did hit it or harm it, it would be much easier to heal, since I was literally only a day old. My mom was off somewhere else. Well, she wasn't really off somewhere else, she was just looking in another direction. And I began looking around. Papers, I thought. Papers, pencils, pens, crayons, whatever I needed. I didn't want to cry. I'd already gotten over that in my previous life, my first life. I didn't want to have to go back to that dumb old habit again. I looked around, over and over and over again. Finally, I found some papers and a few pencils. Well, as well as them being mixed in with a few pens of Dad's. I began climbing around. Mom had noticed that I had already started walking. As I was looking around for such items, "What are you doing?" she said, looking at me, confused. I just stared at her with a fairly nasty look. But quite as nasty as a baby's face could be, though. I began climbing up, as my much smaller body would be much lighter, and got the papers and pens. I put the single pen I was wanting to use in my mouth, so I could easily climb down without much problem. And my mom worriedly watched me, making sure she could catch me if I did fall. However, when I got to the bottom, I took the pen out of my mouth and the papers down to the floor and began to write. "I'm hungry," I wrote. "May I have some food?" My mother was astounded. "How did you..." She started the paper in amazement. "You haven't even said your first word, yet you can write?" I smiled. She was figuring it out, I thought. "How, though? I just gave birth to you yesterday." I shrugged. I couldn't talk, so I had to use paper and pencil. Or paper and pen in this case. Then I wrote under the words, "I'm hungry." I wrote, "Is it possible for us to get a computer soon? I want to be able to animate." Something called YouTube exists, and as well as something called Adobe Animate, and I want to use those. She was even more dumbfounded that I knew about YouTube and Adobe. She didn't even know those things existed. She stared at me with disbelief. "How can you be Annie Hill?" she said, looking at me. I wrote down and said, "Because I've been asleep most of yesterday. And you gave birth to me that day too. Wasn't yesterday October 1st? Oh, and I use paper and pencil because I can't talk without teeth. I'm gonna have to wait on those." My mom shrugged about it. It got me fed. It'd be kind of weird to describe the taste, so I'm not gonna. It'd be weird. Then Mom thought about it. A computer for someone my age. Someone who's literally only a day old, who was showing high intelligence. I could already write in perfect sentences. My writing was practically high school level. I was in high school when I reset. And my mind capacity was definitely that of someone in that age group. I did not act like a baby. I acted like a teen. She was, of course, confused, but shrugged it off. She knew a computer would probably keep me entertained, as the simple things that she would expect a baby like me to enjoy would probably not fit my desires. I'd probably doodle more, as I didn't really have much else to do. She talked it over with my dad. "She wants a computer?" he said, dumbfounded. "Are you sure that's what she's asking? Are you sure she isn't just crying for food?" "Yes, I'm sure. I'll show you what she's written. It's much farther than what I've expected. She's literally only a day old." And I came walking in the room, holding up a piece of paper. I'd written more. He said, "Hey, Dad, I want a computer so I can animate and put it on YouTube." "I know how to do it. Don't worry about it. The only reason why I'm not talking right now, though, is because I don't have teeth yet. Still gotta wait a few months for those." My dad just looked at me confused. "How are they already walking?" he said to Mom. My mom shrugged, having no clue what was going on. "How do we know you're our daughter, Annie Hill?" And then I began writing things down. Because I was given birth yesterday, I was in my mom's hands yesterday. Even though I can understand much farther than the usual middle grade child, I'm still literally only a day old. Possibly even younger than that, as I don't exactly remember the exact hour of my birth. Things like that you just don't remember. I looked up and clicked the pen. How? He stared at my paper blankly. You know what? Why not? Let's get a computer. Let's not get one too expensive though. Just something that she can use. Because I don't think the basic stuff will keep her entertained. Yeah, excuse me. I agree, said my mom, looking at me. I turned the paper over and began doodling some other things. I began doodling my character, Jewel, with the pen. And began drawing black as well. I smiled at my doodles. They were very fast. And I was definitely more skilled than the average day-year-old. As most of the time, they would be crying and screaming and jerking around. I was instead writing incomplete sentences, as I'd lived this life before. The next day, they went to Best Buy, and Dad went looking around for a computer. Something that I could use, something that was up to my level, which was obviously high for my age. He looked around and eventually found something that he liked. Took out a loan to buy the item. Of course, that was earlier. By the way, it was a week old now. He had bought the computer after getting the loan and put it in the room in the house. Connected all of it. The screen, the actual computer itself, mouse, keyboard, as well as getting a chair, a high chair for me to use. I got very distracted immediately. I went to Google and looked up Adobe Animate and YouTube. On YouTube, I created an account. I called my account Shadow's Lullaby. I quite like that name. And it didn't ask for something as silly as a Gmail account. Or any account at all. I was proud of this. Then I created an account for Adobe. It was quick as well. And then I began animating. It was a little dance animation. It was Black dancing. She was dancing with an imaginary character. Black outline, but with hair like a Chad. I laughed at this. My little voice was very high-pitched. I was a baby after all, only a week old. And whenever I asked for food, I asked for, well, actual food. Not just the antibodies that you would normally get in the first few months or week. I couldn't remember. I continued animating a few more animations. They were all very, very good. I still don't know how she's at this level, said my mom to my dad. My dad shrugged it off. Anyway, that was the first video. Don't worry, we'll have a continuation of this tomorrow. See you then. Hope you've enjoyed.